Hello everyone, Christopher Smith, Superintendent of Cherry Creek Schools. As we shared with our interview with Superintendent Mary Chesley, I am here with Dr. Monte Moses to celebrate the great leaders over 75 years in Cherry Creek Schools. Dr. Monte Moses, still great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
It's fun to be able to sit down and talk about Cherry Creek.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us your story. Like, how did you become part of Cherry Creek, and a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. I grew up in a family of educators, and so that's where I got the bug. And my brother and I enjoyed our dad being a high school principal, so we could get into the gyms and meet all the teachers and the coaches and the students and athletes and go to all the performances. And so it's been a part of our lives since we were born. And my brother, by the way, was a retired superintendent in Texas, so we've sort of done all the jobs.
Right.
So that's how it got into our blood. And along the way, I met a lot of really great people. In the 80s, my wife and I were living in Casper, and a gentleman named Jim Hughey was the superintendent of the Casper schools, who wound up being superintendent here in Cherry Creek. Well, he introduced me to Bob Shirkey, who at that time was the superintendent in Littleton. And lucky for us, Dr. Shirkey offered me a job as a principal in Littleton. And not long after, when he migrated to Cherry Creek, he offered me a chance to come and join his team here. And it was such a joy to work under him. He was my mentor, great friend.
Yeah.
So that's how I wound up in Cherry Creek, and I've been thankful ever since.
Yeah, this is such a wonderful organization. We were just talking before the interview, the people. So if you could just tell us, obviously, Mr. Shirkey, Dr. Shirkey was a huge influence on you. Anybody else that, comes to mind from Cherry Creek?
There are so many, and not all of them were employees.
Right.
Many of them were parents, school board members, just people who reached out. But one gentleman that had a profound influence on not just me, but I think many former administrators in Cherry Creek would bring up George Mansfield. He opened Summit Elementary. He was a principal of several other elementary schools and wound up being executive director of elementary schools and supervised a large number of principals in this district. But he was revered by everyone and had such a huge network of friends throughout Denver that he introduced me to because of growing up in Denver and going to school in DPS and then being an administrator in DPS and migrating here. Just really terrific person. And then, our board members over the years were real leaders, real role models of public service and caring about kids and being the voice back into the community that we needed to reassure our community that we're on it. And yeah, we're not going to get everything perfect, but we're going to work as hard as we can to get there.
Right.
And so anyway, yeah, those people, I could go on and on about the people I grew from and worked with, but Cherry Creek has been fortunate to have so many.
Right. Right. And that's why we're here celebrating and talking with you. And you did so many amazing things in your tenure, throughout your career here. So as I was thinking through this interview, I was trying to decide which ones I wanted to talk to you about. So one of the ones that came up is really your focus that you brought into the school district around equity. And so that is one of our core values here in the school district. All means all. This is public education. So talk to us about that journey, because I'm sure, you kind of led the way, not only in Cherry Creek, but kind of pretty much across the Front Range, having those types of conversations in schools. So how was that?
It was a great challenge, and I'm glad to hear that it has endured and you're continuing that thrust, that it's so critical that equity be tied to excellence, which is the district motto, dedicated to excellence. But you can't have excellence, as you said, unless it applies to everybody.
Right.
And there aren't any discard kids.
Right.
This has to be provided in the very best way, that the education system, in the very best way for every student, depending on their needs.
Right.
And their goals as well.
Right.
So at the time I came to Cherry Creek, the district was just a little under 30,000 students, and it was pretty homogeneous, actually. But at that time, the demographics were changing quite rapidly. We were growing about 1,500 students a year on average during that early 90s period. And just keeping up with the growth was difficult, but we began to see pretty clearly that we had an achievement gap, and it was not going to go away without some real concerted efforts to acknowledge it and then address it. But we had to be honest with ourselves that Cherry Creek wasn't going to be the premier district that it had always perceived itself to be unless we knew in our hearts we had done the very best job we could for every student, no matter their race, their income, anything, their disability if they had one. And so as we grew so fast, we had a project called In Search of Excellence, where we located districts that had become more diverse than Cherry Creek and much, much larger. And we went and visited those districts and simply asked the question, how did you do it? Right. And some of those districts were like Fairfax, Virginia, Montgomery County, Maryland, and those districts are way over 100,000 students, but they were still prospering, even though they were very diverse. And so we learned a number of lessons, but when you boil it all down, it's simply commitment to each and every student by every employee every day. There are a lot of other things that you could add in that are critical, and one of the programs that came out of that was AVID, that we wound up introducing here in Cherry Creek because we had learned about it from another district, and then Cherry Creek's become the leading district with AVID in the country. But that's really was the root of it all. And again, it heartens me to hear that all of you are continuing that commitment, because you can't quit on it.
No, you can't. Kids need us. You know, I share oftentimes, you know, we have 53,000 babies that are dropped off to us every single day, and it's our job to get them home safe, and it's our job to get them home, you know, a little bit, you know, better than when they showed up, you know, to our schools that morning, right? And so I truly appreciate it, because it's something that is near and dear to my heart, right? And it's race, it's socioeconomics, it's learning styles, it's everything, right? Because there's a lot of kids who don't fit the traditional mode of learning, and so that equity piece is that conversation too, you know.
And it makes me proud to see what has happened in recent years here in Cherry Creek in terms of more alternative programs for students, more you know, more diversity and ability to meet learning styles, whether it's the Innovation Campus or the I-Teams or any number of programs that are long-term aspects of the district and new things. So I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, it's, as we always share, it's on the backs of all the other leaders that have come through this district to keep, you know, that pride and that push towards excellence. So talk to me about that. I mean, dedicated to excellence, that was your tenure, you know, and here it still stands today, you know. And so, you know, that push, and the funny part is, you know, something is extremely powerful when you get phone calls and say, you know, I thought you were dedicated to excellence. I didn't say I was perfect. We're trying to do the best we can every day. But how was that process?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Those are the best kind of phone calls. When somebody has a gripe and wants to hold you to the standard.
Right.
It's just like, hey, you know, you say you're for this, prove it.
Right.
Well, you know, the aspect of dedicated to excellence certainly preceded me in Cherry Creek, and it goes all the way back to Clark Stutler, because when I was working in Cherry Creek, I was curious about it and did some research, and Dr. Don Go was still involved with the district then as a board member, but he had been deputy superintendent for many, many years and had known all the previous superintendents, he and along with Dick Keppy. And so that motto was in play here in Cherry Creek, and I just had the opportunity to amplify it. You know, it's like that old saying, you know, this organization had the heart of a lion. I just got to let it roar, you know. And, you know, to try and bring out the pride, you know, the pride that Cherry Creek had always had, and say, let's live up to that standard. Let's not just talk about it. Let's not just walk around and assume it's going to happen. Let's put our heart into it every day. And we used that in a number of different ways to play on the things that we needed to achieve, like the Equity Project, which at that time we called Excellence in Equity, trying to let people know we're not going to compromise on excellence, but equity is a part of excellence. If it doesn't apply to everybody, then you're really not excellent. And In Search of Excellence, that project to try and learn how to be a great big district, those things spun off of Dedicated to Excellence, but as I said, it preceded me, and it was a joy to know it had that linkage back to Clark Stutler when he first was hired to be the first superintendent of Cherry Creek, and the first board members that were a part of all that. And I've had the pleasure of knowing a lot of them. One of them was Robert Wilson. The Robert Wilson room next to the superintendent's office was named for a gentleman who was on the board 30 years in Cherry Creek before there were term limits. And Bob Wilson was a pivotal board member who ensured that Cherry Creek was not going to be totally annexed into Denver.
Yes, I just, you know, having this conversation, we were just talking about that. We're looking at some boundaries and trying to figure ourselves out, and to see like that dig into Cherry Creek, you know, when you think about the Hollies and you think, you know, going down Monaco, and the question exactly was that, like, what happened? And it was like, yep, they went to Greenwood Village, they went and had a conversation to say, no, stop, we need to stop. So
it took some really powerful pushback to preempt that. And I mean, you get so many interesting phone calls, just like I did. One day somebody called me up and said, well, why did you build Cherry Creek High School right here in the middle of all this traffic that's on Dayton and on the Cherry Creek Dam Road? And I said, come by my office. And the guy was kind of chewing on me. I want to show you a picture. And there was a picture of the first building of Cherry Creek High School sitting out all by itself, and there wasn't anything for 10 miles around, nothing. And the only house that was close by was at Bellevue and Yosemite, and it belonged to the Wolford family. And Mike Wolford wound up becoming head football coach of Cherry Creek High School 30 years later. It's just all these really
the
curious
connections, it's small world, right?
But I had to laugh of the gentleman not understanding that this place, when it started, was out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. There's a picture with horses like wrapped around the thing. You know, it's like,
oh yeah, the kids used to ride their horses right here, and of course, you know, the land that we're sitting on was given to the school district because of the dam project to, you know, have a flood protection on Cherry Creek. So it worked out really well. And then the property that's over off Hamden, in between I-225 and Hamden, sat dormant for many, many years. There's a Walmart now there and apartments, but we were able to sell that property, and the funds from that sale were used to build Legacy Stadium.
Oh, really?
So it was never in a bond election. It just was our good fortune to have that ground that was deeded to us when the dam was built.
Right. So many stories, so many wonderful things, you know, life-changing work. So when you think about the legacy of Cherry Creek, what would you say?
Well, I would say it's a role model dedicated to excellence in living up to it. And you and I know that people around the state and the nation do look to Cherry Creek.
They do.
And it also means that we're under the microscope. Right. And you are more under the microscope than many other superintendents because of that reputation. Right. And people will demand that you live up to it. Right. But that's the honor of serving in Cherry Creek as a teacher, as a support personnel employee, auxiliary services, bus driver, it doesn't matter. All of those positions demand excellence because we've told our community, you should expect that from us. Absolutely. And they have told us that we're going to provide for you the resources you need so that you can live up to that motto. So I think that's the legacy. I think you know, a part of the legacy too is just good people, hardworking people who look at public education as a vital part of the backbone of this country. And frankly, one of the last remaining institutions that has kept its ability to connect communities, to keep people from fragmenting. And it's my fervent hope that that will continue to be the case, not just in Cherry Creek, but across this country, because our nation is really depending on this as we go forward.
Yeah, you know, I've been traveling to some of our smaller districts and having conversations about how can we be supportive of one another. And in those, you are 100% correct. It's like, wow, Cherry Creek is sitting here having conversations with us and sharing their resources with us because they care about all the kids in Colorado, not just Cherry Creek school kids. And when you lead, that's how you lead. right? And we got that from you and the leaders from before, that we lead the way, but it's not just about us, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like you, Chris. I inherited it, and but it's something that's just like what your parents give you in terms of values. You know darn well you better live up to it,
Right.
or else they'd be ashamed of you.
Yep.
And that's, whether it's Dr. Shirkey or Dr. Kepi or Jim Hughey, Mr. Hughey, or Clark Stetler, you feel like you have a real obligation to keep it real,
Yep.
to keep it going, to keep that momentum pushing forward, and I'm proud to see it going on.
Right. And so my last question for you is, what advice do you have for me in the next, line of superintendents for Cherry Creek? What's your advice to us?
I just say the same thing my parents said to me as a kid: so you stay true to your values.
Right.
And the superintendent's job is to embody those values in the very best way you can as a leader. And I know you do that, and and part of that is wearing your heart on your sleeve. You've got to be vulnerable to criticism and willing to take it and learn and grow from it. And sometimes it's important to set people straight when they're wrong,
Right.
but it's also very important that they know we can admit when we're wrong,
Right.
because that is how you lift yourself up. That's how you do achieve excellence. You have a bad play, you get up, run the next one
Right.
perfectly.
Yep.
So I would say that above all else is stick to the core values of Cherry Creek, what you're doing, while constantly improving and innovating.
Right.
You can't sit still, and this district can't be excellent running the way it was when I was here.
No.
It would be behind.
Yep.
Whether it's technology, but it's also more than technology. It's about people's mindsets.
Right.
And keeping a growth mindset, always pushing through the organization. I know that's something you believe in deeply, but it's just got to be said over and over and over. That's what we're about as an institution, is helping kids grow toward their version of excellence. And so congratulations on what you're doing. And,
Thank you.
And I'm just proud I've been able to be affiliated with Cherry Creek all these years.
Well, again, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Appreciate you.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add before we go our separate ways?
Oh shoot, I don't know, Chris. It's just it's fun to reflect on these people.
Yeah.
And how great an organization Cherry Creek
Always
is.
people, right?
Yeah.
Always people.
They always made me proud. I will tell you, I always used to get asked about the snow day thing. And at one point there was a rumor that I had this Humvee, when they first came out, and a dog that, was the test dog. And people said, if the dog is buried when he jumps out of the Humvee, then that might be a snow day. But anyway, long story short, we hired this great transportation director from Arizona. And he had been an Army colonel and done all kinds of transportation projects in his career in the armed forces. But anyway, he was really nervous about the snow.
Right.
Being from Arizona and his previous job. And so the first time we got a snow when he took over, it was about 1.5 inches. And he called me and said, "It looks pretty slick out there, Dr. Moses." I said, "Well, this is Colorado, man. That snow's going to be gone in 30 minutes.
That's right.
And the parents would kill us if we didn't have school. You run those buses."
Yeah.
So the next time is about 4 inches. I said, "It's January, Lowell. We've got snow plows.
Yeah.
We've got chains. We've got all kinds of equipment to clean
Right.
up these driveways. This is Colorado, man." Well, it was the year he started. It was the March of 2023, and it snowed one night over 40 inches. And he called me and he said, "Dr. Moses, it'd be hell, but if you say we got to go tomorrow, we'll go." I said, "No, Lowell, this is a snow day." Even in Colorado, we will agree that sometimes we just got to call it off.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I'll end with that. Well, again, thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you've given to the Cherry Creek School
Well,
District.
thanks for the chance to talk
Yes,
with
sir.
you. All right.
Yes, sir.